Hey guys, Alex here, ajnashville.com here again with our co-host, Mr. Gregory Pease. Can I call you Gregory?
I like Greg.
Gregory just sounds so professional.
So formal.
Gregory.
I'm excited to be here every week. Always excited to be here. We definitely spent some time in making sure we brought you guys some valuable information this week, and excited to share it with you guys.
Guys and girls.
And guys
Amen.
and girls. It is at a very appropriate time to make sure we are inclusive to everyone.
Yes, because we don't want to be failures, and we want to take opportunities to address the whole audience, which it's funny that I tie those words in because that's actually what we're talking about today is opportunities and failures. And Greg, you and I were on the just going back and forth here a minute ago, and we were talking about the fact that most people, when they talk about their experience in life, they're like, I failed many times. Okay, well, what does that mean? Because I failed many times means, yes, you slipped, you fell, you got back up. Did you go the same direction?
Right.
As you were going in when you failed initially? Nobody ever elaborates on that, I feel like. It's always, I failed many times before I became a millionaire. Okay, what else?
Right.
So that's something we want to dive into.
So,
Greg, go ahead. I'll let you elaborate.
Well,
on
and I started. It provoked thought for me right when you were saying that. If I was gonna run a mile and I made an attempt to do it barefoot, and I didn't make it to the end of the mile because my feet hurt too much.
Right.
And I'd say I failed at that mission.
Yeah.
Okay. I learned that I need some type of protection or covering on my feet to allow us to go forward. If the next day I try to run that mile again barefoot,
right,
this is definitely a failure on my part. I
Yes.
possess the knowledge to know how to do this differently, and I made a decision to try to do it the same way for a different result.
Well, and the other end of the spectrum is somebody will listen and they'll say, yeah, but eventually your feet will get hardened and they'll get calloused and you'll be able to run that mile barefoot. You are correct. But do you want to do that 25 times and fail 25 times? Or do you want to fail once and then succeed the next time so you can move on to the next mission?
And when even so breaking that in a little bit further, look at, so there's some truth to that. You literally could, if you will, in my invisible quotations, failure the way to success. You could harden your feet. But why would you keep trying to run a mile barefoot and failing every time, knowing that that's the case? How about we now have information. What if you were to research on how to harden your feet?
Right.
Then you took that first, what we called a failure, and you made it into an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the best way to get to that, you're absolutely right. You don't necessarily need to throw a pair of shoes on or something like that. If you couldn't afford a pair of shoes, in this analogy, and you had to figure out how you can harden it, it doesn't mean that you have to run across the blistering hot pavement and tear the bottoms of your feet up in order to get to that point. You can find a different way to condition. The fact is insanity. Insanity is a definition that we hear commonly shared, and that's doing the same thing to expect different results, or doing the same thing over and over and expecting something different to come out of it. And to me, that point of failure is the definition of an insanity, because you're thinking, hey, if I continue to run barefoot, eventually I'll complete that 1 mile.
Right. And maybe, again, for the people who are like, well, it could be. Maybe so, and if that's your ultimate goal in life, tear it up. But you definitely
Literally.
see what we're saying. Tear up the heels. But you definitely see what we're getting at. Failure becomes, or it's my belief that failure, you are entering that realm, because, again, today's topic's more around opportunities versus failures. Because everything that we do, when we take an action, it doesn't come to fruition, it doesn't have to be a failure.
Right.
But my belief is, and it sounds like we're on the same page, Alex, that when someone continues to take the same action, knowing that it's not of success, that's where you have to start taking some ownership for the failure that's taking place.
Yeah. No, and that's true. And the opportunity side of things is, you failed. You realize that in this analogy that, hey, you know what, I can't do this barefoot. So the opportunity to complete this mission or this task or whatever it is by changing something very simple. Not necessarily your agility, your ability, anything like that. Just put a fucking pair of shoes on. So.
But and then even talking about so I'm going to dive into. We talked a lot about on the failure side, and when we didn't just talk about things that were failures, we also talked about things that are labeled as a failure but are not.
Right.
I want to really dive into that opportunity side and start looking at So in a prior podcast, we talked about commitment and taking action, and we suggested in prior podcasts that even if you didn't have, if it wasn't the perfect timing, if you didn't have the proper resources currently, if you didn't know everything there was to know about whatever this thing was, to get up and just take action. We talked about that before. Maybe we've shared about around being in the gym, maybe around leading your staff, maybe around goals you have for this year, family. So we say just take action, right? Well, on the early start of any new action, journey, skill set, there's a lot of things that we don't even know that we don't know yet. We're not even aware that they're unknowns to us.
Right.
So what I want to afford you around opportunity, first let me share what Webster has determined the definition of opportunity to be, and I liked it. There was two definitions, and the second one was not as fitting for today, so you don't even get to hear it. So the first one says opportunity is a set of circumstances that makes it possible to do something. A set of circumstances that makes it possible to do something. So we just said that a lot of times we know to be true. We all know that on a new skill set, journey, adventure, action, there's things that we are unaware that we don't even know.
Right.
So how could you possibly have circumstances that make it possible for you to do something if you don't even know what you don't know?
Right.
My point being, as we've shared in other podcasts, to take action now. When you don't have the proper resources, you don't have all the knowledge, it's not the perfect timing, but you go out and you take action now and something happens, but it doesn't come to fruition. You have now been made aware of some of the things you don't know. You now have the opportunity to go seek knowledge in a specific area to allow you to push this ball further downfield.
Well, not only that, but you get a chance to associate with people that are headed in that same direction.
Absolutely.
That you can more than likely take lessons from without experiencing the failure portion that they have already experienced.
100%.
You know, it's easier for me to tell you, hey, don't drive down that road over there because there's a box of nails. And if you drive down that road, you'll get a flat tire. For you to say, hey, if I drive down that road, I'm going to get nails because he just experienced that. You're probably not going to drive down that road, correct?
Correct.
You know,
absolutely.
So it gives you there's the opportunity was getting to the destination. The point of taking a lesson was me saying there's nails there, don't drive down that way. Now you have to find a different path. Now finding out where you are and figuring out that different path, we've all done it before. You're in the car, you're like, hey, there's a detour, but there's no signs up telling me where to go. You just take a turn. Take a turn and start heading in the direction. You know you've got to go this way, and this way is towards the sun. So just figure out a way to head that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, take action. Yep, and then the next piece will prevail for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where a lot of us get hung up is we think, well, that's the only way I know to go. This is the street, quote unquote street, I always drive down. And so how am I going to figure out a different way? You know, is there a different way? And if there is a different way, how difficult is that path? You know, if you can get to the same place, but the path is a gravel road versus a paved road, it still gets you to the destination. It's just going to take a little more out of you in order to get there.
Right.
You know, and that's the failures that I see a lot of people talking about. These big, you know, people that have made it, so to speak, in life. They talk about, oh, I've experienced these failures. Yes, but you've also experienced mentors to help you kind of navigate past some of the potential failures. You don't need to learn by getting hit in the face with something.
Right.
You can learn by lessons.
Well, and so I'm going to add into that. So for people that are on their personal ascent in whichever journey they're in life right now, we obviously, which we got to do a podcast about. Have we done a podcast before? We got to do something around mentors, like finding mentors. Like, how do you find a good mentor? We got to do a podcast on that because,
for sure.
And that's been huge. That's a whole nother day. I don't want to use it all, but I do want to share. I do just want to shed a little bit of light because the thought just came to mind. Most of my mentors are so big that they don't even know I exist.
Right.
For example, I mean, you're talking about people like, for example, and I know some of you, love or hate the man, but Grant Cardone, like, would be an example. At one point in time, now keep in mind, he is become a little bit more mainstream than what I care to be. But back, you back up roughly 10 years ago when that guy was really on the initial hustle and grind.
Right.
I followed him. He was a mentor. He never even knew who I was. We never even met each other.
Yeah.
So your mentor doesn't have to be someone that meets you and has coffee with you, although those ones are great as well.
Well, and that's a great point. So I had a mentor myself that I literally followed his Facebook post, his YouTube videos, and some of the things he was implementing, I started to implement, and it changed my business. My business from the mortgage standpoint, I started to create more business just off the stuff I was watching this individual execute. You know, again, it falls back into He didn't know who I was. Now, I was fortunate because later on down the road, I had the opportunity to hang out with him, meet him, do things like that, and know him on a personal level. But it didn't start that way. And I didn't have the money back then to pay for his coaching, even if I wanted to. I mean, the guy was charging $3,000 a month for coaching. I didn't have an extra $3,000 to tell, hey, yeah, no problem. You want to check now or an IOU? Because an IOU is about what, that's what you're going to get. But I took the opportunities to pick up the pieces that he was giving for free as, bait to pull you in, but giving me these opportunities for free to elevate myself to the next level to where I could afford that if that's what I decided to do.
Man, that's huge. And it's slightly, we're still loosely on target from opportunity, but man, I want to talk about that a little bit. That's huge that people say that, yeah, man, that was just huge. That was really valuable. You might not be able to afford that next book, seminar, coaching program, whatever the case may be, but all of these gurus or mentors or whatever the case may be, all of them, they are giving away trickles of information in order to keep you fed and excited.
Right.
It's not enough to get you to the millionaire side, but listen, if you implement them, I mean, that was powerful. That was a powerful claim that you just made that you've been through. You were able to take just the pieces to turn that into something where you could actually afford the mentor you wanted.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
huge.
And a lot of times you can't afford the opportunity, but you can't afford to miss the opportunity. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, 100%.
I know you people out there that can dissect words get exactly what it is I'm saying is you can't afford to pursue the actual opportunity itself, but you can't afford to miss it. So you got to pick up the pieces that you can in order to pursue it. And you know this just as well as I do, and this is part of your backstory. You had an opportunity for some coaching that you put on a credit card in order to go in and get, or maybe it was the last portion of the money you had, but you had to take that leap in order to seize that opportunity that you felt created value, which allowed you to be where you are today.
Absolutely.
Because if you removed that small opportunity, where would you be?
100%. 100%. Yep. Who knows where that next piece would have went? Oh, go ahead.
Well, and what I was going to say is there's a lot of people that I'm personal friends with and that I know of and have seen that same thing. You hear these stories of rich dad, poor dad. He had $2 in his pocket and he was walking out of town and this turned into that, or there were some other people I may be confusing the stories, but the fact is these people took a chance.
Right.
And they took a chance of what they saw as an opportunity, with the exception of understanding that failure could be imminent. But hey, if I don't take this opportunity, I will never see success.
Well, and even to tweak that a little bit, like when we say failure, it will be imminent. And we talked about the terms. It's confusing, like because we hear the terms like failure way to success. I also want to touch on the piece that that's what I'm challenging most people today. It's just a play of words, okay? Just understand that. But that's what I'm challenging you, that when we say failure way to success or failure will be imminent, there will be obstacles. But if you go around collecting your losses, you're going to realize how many losses you have.
Yeah, for sure.
If you go around collecting your opportunities, you're going to realize how many opportunities you have. So right now, again, just kind of a play on words, opportunities versus failures. But don't go around like as you take the leap of faith and you purchase a coaching program, or you decide to buy that book, or whatever that case may be. Whatever doesn't work, if you're looking for what doesn't work, you're going to realize your failures.
Yes.
If you're looking for what does work, you're going to realize opportunities. They're not wins yet because you didn't get the score, but you realize that you can rack up on opportunities nonstop if you put the mindset to see the opportunity.
Well, and that's the thing, is you have to get the opportunity to, or the mindset to see the opportunity even in the negative.
Right.
Right. And I know that's what you were touching on, is the fact is certain things take place and you can just drown yourself in negativity. You can look at it and say, this is the worst thing ever. I can't grow. I can't this. I can't that. Or you can look at it and say, you know what? That sucked. But I learned this.
Now I know X.
Right.
And knowledge is power by far.
Yep. And, a thing to tie into that, and again, this is something that you and I can relate to very well. You can take our childhood and say, hey, you know what? That was just awful. That was horrible. How can any human being go through that? Oh, my goodness. Like, don't feel sorry for me. Right. Because I wouldn't be the person I am today.
Not at all.
Had I not looked back and said, you know what, this is the person I never want to be.
Not only that, I mean, I'll speak on a level of, and I've done a decent amount of unpacking from my childhood, and so I feel comfortable saying a lot. It's like, no one should ever have to go through what I went through. It's a horrible thing for a human to go through. and having to being here today, sitting here today, being a survivor, I have more discipline and attention to detail that I don't even have to work for than most
Right.
people strive to do.
Right.
Those are my gifts from what happened. They should not have happened. I would never suggest for any human have to go through what you had went through as a
Right.
child. However, the opportunity is I now have gifts and I will either use them or squander them.
Yep. Well, in intuition, for example.
Intuition,
In
that's
a
huge.
in a sales standpoint, intuition is invaluable. I mean, I shouldn't say valuable, very valuable. Not wait, this is anyways.
Yeah. I'm tracking. I'm tracking.
Not good at English, really good at intuition. But being
Here's
able to
my
pick
gifts.
up on that, right? Exactly. Here's my gifts. Here's my not gifts.
Yeah.
Being able to pick up on that, though, somebody's personality, how they're responding to how they're providing you feedback in the way that you're presenting something. Like intuition is something that, as a child, I had to pick up. Hey, how is this person going to act when they walk through the door?
As soon as they walk through the door.
Right. You have to read body language, facial expression, attitude, the way they walk. All this is an instant read. And whereas some people, it's like, hey, I got to get smacked in the face before I can tell that person's angry with me.
Right.
Again, it's one of those things. It's the opportunities. It's the failures. It's what you take of each lesson in life. Let's face it. I think very few of us will ever say, once I reach this point, I'm done.
Right.
Once I get to this level, I'm done. It's like, okay, I've conquered this. Now what? What's next? And the fact is as we continue to grow, and they say the older you get, the wiser you are. As you continue to grow, you start looking at those previous lessons, and now you find a better way to navigate through the things that you're trying to accomplish.
And those are your opportunities that you've collected. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And big thing, I won't dive into it. As you said, you didn't want to dive into it too much because it could literally take up a whole podcast. But find an individual who has been where you want to be, or has been where you're trying to get to some level. Maybe that person has succeeded in your eyes. They are the top of the totem pole. But that means that person has been in every slot of that totem pole and may have skipped a couple slots from not a secret, but a
efficiency
different method.
standpoint.
Yeah. Zig Ziglar's,
100%.
he talks about there's no elevator to the top.
You have to take each next step.
You got to take the steps. Yep. So, maybe that person can tell you how to take those steps without falling. So find yourself somebody that can guide you. The opportunity in that, it's an opportunity in itself.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So,
that's huge.
Now, Mr. Springer, any closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts. Of course, we're going to put
thoughts.
some final thoughts on everybody. So my final thoughts for today is that the next failure, you need to program your mind, right? So based upon how you program your mind, you can have a total different output in life. So the next failure that you come across, and I encourage you, not just the very next one, but the next several that come in, I want you to just process it for a second and think about it. Could I have done something differently? Was I armed with information to do this differently? And if so, what can you implement so you never have that failure again?
Right.
If not, you just had a win. You just learned something. You just had an opportunity. If you do that for the next couple failures, it's going to become a system in your subconscious mind for you, and you're going to start having more wins.
Yeah, and I guess for my closing thought, the biggest thing is find the opportunity in every situation. The positivity, the lesson. I say opportunity. If you distill that down to my actual meaning behind it, is in every situation that you have, there is a lesson or an opportunity or whatever it may be that you can pull from it that's positive. So change your mindset on that. If something happens, if on the way to work you get cut off, okay, well, maybe that person that cut you off is just, they're in a rush to get their family to the hospital because there's something wrong. But find the positivity in things, and you'll start seeing those opportunities open up. And when you see those opportunities open up because you're sharing a positive mindset, you may see that you're going to face less failures. So that's all we have for today. I want to thank everybody so much for tuning in. I hope those of you that have made New Year's resolutions are still keeping up with it. Yep, holding strong, keep pushing. I've driven past the gym because I didn't resolute to stop, but
You're like, I drove, but that's what I drove past.
Yeah, everyone's like, I ran 4 miles today. I'm like, I drove 6. So what? Who went further? But I hope you're holding strong, and if you're struggling, re-engage and figure out what you can do or where your failures are in order to seize the opportunity that you're after. So thanks again for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.